Welcome to the Postpartum Coach podcast, where we embrace our needs as moms. We learn to lead ourselves first, then our families, and where we create our own healing from the inside out to find our way to the work we were meant to do in this world. I'm your host, a fellow mom of 3 and a certified life coach, Lizzie Langston. Hi, Lizzie Langston here. What's up? I'm on YouTube. I'm on the podcast. So for all of my regular podcast listeners, this is coming at you in a video. You can see my office, which I didn't clean. My husband was like, you should clean the office. And I was like, you know what? If it's too clean in here, moms are turned off. They need to know I'm not perfect. And this is my office as it normally is. Actually, it's pretty clean. I think he cleaned it. All right. I wanted to introduce you again, podcast listeners. You get my voice all the time. I love you. I see you. Hi. The podcast is the Postpartum Coach podcast. And by the way, side note, postpartum, having so much fun being on video. I've been doing this podcast for 5 years, and this is literally the first video we've done on purpose. My hubby set all of this techie stuff up. Thank you, hubby. I've been doing this for 5 years. And so for a minute, I just wanted to let you who are on YouTube kind of get to know me a little bit. And hi, my podcast listeners that just have my voice. I want you to know these things too. Number one, this is my journal that I bought for myself. Is it backwards? Oh, it's not backwards. It says She is Magic, Manifestations. I just wanted you to know that I'm very, very magical. I'm very, very into embodiment. I'm a generator in my human design type. And my number one gift is embodiment. I literally, and joyful life. Like my gift that I bring to people is I model what it's like to be in the body and live life strategically in the body. Yes, you use your mind, but knowing when to jump out of that mind and get into your body, which is something we're going to talk about in today's episode on intrusive thoughts. Woo! Stay tuned because this is probably the hottest topic that women come to me with postpartum. So we're going to talk about embodiment, and that is one of my gifts. And then I guess I just wanted to show you my crystal. I'm like, hi, nice to meet you on YouTube. Can we be friends? Okay, so I have some clear quartz crystal here, and I actually don't know what this one is, but it's my manifestation stone. And anytime I'm doing work around abundance and money, this stone gets loaded with all of my abundance and money stuff. All right, nice to meet you, Lizzie Langston, the postpartum coach here. In case you're new around here. Like I said, we're going to be talking about intrusive thoughts. What is an intrusive thought? We're going to talk about what they are, how they feel, some examples of them. Hopefully it's pretty self-explanatory, but just in case it's not, or just so we can make sure we're on the same page, I'm going to give you some examples. I've served clients now for about 5 or 6 years in this business of the postpartum coach, and they've all been mothers and women. And I just want to give you some like real ones that I wrote down that I remember people telling me. And then also ones that I've had, and maybe share some crazy stories because I just had my 4th baby 5 months ago. Literally yesterday, she was 5 months. What? So I even had some kind of strange intrusive thoughts this last time. They're normal. However, that doesn't mean that we need to be like, oh, they're normal. No way. It doesn't matter. They do matter. They are flags. I'm looking at both cameras. They are flags. So you need to, I'm just having way too much fun here on camera. So yeah, intrusive thoughts, they are common. They do happen. However, that doesn't mean that we need to treat them like commonplace and be dismissive of them because they're scary. It's way scary and you need to know how to deal with them. So we're going to talk about what they are and why they happen. I think the most important thing, the reason it's so important to know why they happen is because so many women experience scary thoughts about doing scary, hard things or like harmful things to their body, to themselves, to the baby. And their brain is like, I'm broken. I must be evil or I'm cursed or something. Like we think the most horrible, sad things and we turn on ourselves when really we need the most nurturing ever with these. So I'm going to help you understand why they happen so you can feel at ease, baby girl. Feel at ease, mama, and know that it's not just you. There's actually reasons that these happen, but they are a big deal. And then the last thing is we're going to go over how to prevent intrusive thoughts from happening and how to react and respond in a way that actually gets them to stop happening so much. And I just wanted to say before we dive in, I have clients right now who became mothers during the pandemic, which is like a horrible, hard time to become a mom. So isolating, so lonely. Definitely a couple clients I'm thinking of right now struggled with intrusive thoughts all alone during the pandemic, and they are thriving right now. They don't even experience them. And they have had moments of just being in tears over joy and relief that is not the mind that they feel trapped in and the body that they feel trapped in anymore. So there's so much hope for you. Okay. There's hope for you. I've got you. I've got tools. And as always, if you want more of this, just go to LizzieLangston.com. Come find me on Instagram at Lizzie, that's LAZZIE .postpartum coach. Okay. So first, what are intrusive thoughts? I literally have a list in front of me. I love the sound of paper. So I'm going to like really loudly turn through my journal. Something is really wrong with me. So, let's define. An intrusive thought is when you have a thought that kind of like zooms past your mind and you don't feel like you thought it. It just kind of bing, kind of came in there and it freaked you out. And typically it's very scary and alarming because it's something you would never, ever choose to do. And yet it's in your brain. And so it's really easy to start thinking, I've got to be broken. I'm crazy, blah, blah, blah. But no, we're going to talk about why these happen. So some examples of intrusive thoughts is, I'm not meant to be a mom, or sorry, that's not one of them. It is going to be like, maybe you imagine in your mind hurting your baby. You have the thought of doing something harmful to your baby or your toddler. It doesn't have to be just your newborn. It can be maybe older kids. It's basically thoughts that are not rational. You would never act on them. And they are very desperate. They are like the lowest quality thoughts that we can have. And then when we have them, we have this second layer of reaction to them. So you've got the initial intrusive thought, and then we have thoughts like, I must not be meant to be a mom because obviously I can't handle this, right? And so we make it mean things that are really, really hard and scary as well. My husband or my partner's not going to love me anymore because if they knew that I had this thought, I'm not worthy. I'm upset with God. Why did God allow me to have that thought? I must be evil. I'm broken. So there's the actual scary thoughts that come in that are super intrusive. And then there's the response thoughts that don't actually help anything either. So we're going to fine tune these today. We're going to talk about, like I said, why these happen and then what to do and how to respond so that we can minimize them and break them down and break free. All right. That's what we're doing today. So why they happen. I have to first touch on this, even though I'm like a mental and emotional wellness coach, I'm an embodiment, postpartum, I get it. We just need to talk about the plain Jane fact that you need sleep. Everyone needs sleep. Everyone needs sleep. Okay? We all need sleep. And what's crazy is that somehow the messaging to postpartum women, we kind of fell for this idea that we need to settle into like, oh, just being sleep deprived is just part of how postpartum goes. It doesn't have to be. If you are a person who knows that when you get sleep, you're good, and when you don't get sleep, you're not good, then why would you mess with the sleep thing, right? Like I get that your sleep could take a hit postpartum, but then you need to be making sure, I don't mean to like chastise, but I say this from really intense mental health issues that as I look back, if I would have had sleep support or given up nursing way earlier and stopped being so focused on the health of the baby while I was sitting there totally drowning and suffering emotionally, then it would have been totally different. I would have been so much better and more resilient. So the first thing is if you're getting less than 6 hours and for sure less than 4 hours, 4 or less hours of sleep per 24-hour cycle, you are playing with fire, my love, and you're asking for it. You are in the danger zone for intrusive thoughts, okay? Because again, intrusive thoughts are the lowest quality thoughts we can have. And when we have low quality to no sleep or very little to little sleep, we're going to have these intrusive thoughts. The next reason is we are missing the earlier, more subtle signs from our body and our mind. We're not listening to our thoughts. We're not catching our body's signs and signals. And so we are letting it get to this point where the thoughts become really low quality. They become really intrusive when in reality, we could, I'm not telling you should have, I'm saying you can. And this is what I teach women. we can learn how to better tune into our body so that we don't get to this point that's really scary and dangerous with the intrusive thoughts. Okay. So there's two whys, well, a few, right? There's the sleep, low sleep. There's missing more subtle, kind of like level 1 and level 2 um, efforts that our body and our mind and our thoughts make to get our attention. And then there's also the response that we have to them that actually reinforces the place that these thoughts come from. It doesn't care how it impacts you. It cares if you respond to it. So kind of like a Facebook ad, I'll just wrap it up with this example. If you click on a Facebook ad for cookies, let's say there's an ad for sugar cookies. You click on them and then you go to the page and you're like, never mind. Those don't look as cool as I want. You go back to scrolling Facebook. The next ad is probably going to be either brownies or another kind of cookie, right? Because the algorithms are always watching you. And similarly, I don't want you to think your brain is like watching you in a creepy way, but your brain is a lot more like a computer than we even realize. And so when you respond in a really big freak out way to intrusive thoughts, your brain's like, okay, that worked to get her attention. And so it actually reinforces the pattern of the intrusive thoughts coming. Creepy, right? So we need to just be aware of that. We can be empowered and know how this all works so that we can respond accordingly. Now you might be thinking, well, but they're scary. Like I don't want to be a murderer of people or myself. I don't want to kill myself. How do I deal with these? Yeah, I think it's good that you're scared. So I think you should be a little bit freaked out. They're doing their job, the intrusive thoughts, if you are freaked out, but that's not going to be productive in the long game. So I'm going to spruce up your game here. So obviously, how are we going to, we have two areas of approaching and figuring out how we're going to be better with the intrusive thoughts. We have the preventing and reading our signs from our body earlier so that we don't get to this point. And then we have watching how we respond to them and make sure we're not escalating the whole experience, but calming ourselves and bringing it back down. Okay. So we're going to talk about those now. First, let's talk about things that you could be missing from your body, ways that your body's talking to you, trying to get your attention that you're not hearing, that is leading to you getting to the red zone where now you're intrusive thoughts. So I want you to think about like if you were at SeaWorld and the big killer whales were doing their splashes and you were choosing your seats, right? And they're like the very, very up close seats are the splash zone. And you just know if you sit in those front seats, you're going to get splashed pretty big. And so people choose to sit there typically because they want to get all wet, right? And then as you sit farther back, you get less and less wet. So there are levels of sort of urgency that our needs and our desires come to us with. And if we're really good at listening to our needs, like the need for more sleep or the need to eat, then we don't get hangry or we don't get super sleep deprived and cranky. But if we're not listening to those needs, or maybe we are listening to them, but then we're choosing to serve other people's needs instead of attending to our needs, which is really understandable. It can happen when you have a newborn. It's just the problem is that that's when our body goes to more desperate measures, right? Desperate measures, which I would say intrusive thoughts are an extremely desperate measure. So let's zoom in and I'll give you a couple examples of what this looks like on a day-to-day basis for a mom. Let's say that you are feeding your baby, you're bottle feeding your baby. She's a couple months old. You're still kind of not in a good schedule yet. You have been a little bit more sleep deprived. And there you are feeding her and she's like, and your brain, she being your body, not the baby, your body's like, I'm so tired. You hear this thought go off in your mind. I'm so tired. I wish I could rest. And then you talk her down and you're like, but I can't because my partner's at work and I don't want to ask my mom to come over and help because she'll just give me a guilt trip. And my best friend would probably be a little bit inconvenienced if I asked her for help. And so like we kind of talk ourselves out of strategizing for ways to get sleep. And it's really understandable. But again, that's level 1. We just have a casual thought like, oh, I'm so tired. All right. Then let's say later in the day, you're hanging out with your baby and you are yawning and you're just like, the voice in your head gets a little bit louder, a little bit more persistent, and maybe even a little bit more frustrated. And you're like, oh, I just really want to sleep. And then you're thinking about your partner at work and you're here at home and you're feeling a little bit resentful and you're starting to think about how you miss your job as a nurse and you are starting to feel low and whatever. And so all of this kind of, it's bigger. Do you see how the emotions are rising? The need is just the same, but the longer we don't figure out a way to meet our need, the worse that the quality of our ability to solve the need gets. And I want you to know, I get it. I get all of the reasons that you feel like you can't get sleep, for example. But that doesn't change the fact that your body has needs. It has real needs. You're not a machine. You're just a mom. You're just a human taking care of another human, and you have limitations just like your baby has limitations. And so, yeah, now at this point, now you're waking up with the stage 3, right? The red zone, the splash zone. You're in the middle of the night, you're feeding your baby, and now you randomly have an intrusive thought of just throwing your baby on the floor. Just like, I'm just done. I'm just so done, right? You don't say that. You're just sitting there thinking, feeding your baby, and you just have this really scary thought to just like do something rash. And you almost feel like the urge to do it, okay? That's when it gets so creepy, is because that intrusive thought now is like, it's like your brain and body have tried to communicate their needs, and we haven't met the needs. And now they're at like that red zone. So this is how it happens. And it's tricky. It's tricky. I get it. But if we don't want the intrusive thoughts, we've got to get better at listening. And sleep is just one example. You know, there can be other examples, like hunger is another one, or even just social. Maybe you're scrolling social media and it's just level 1. You're like, I really miss my friends, man. You feel kind of low about it. Then, I don't know, your cousins and your mom and your cousin come over and they come visit you with the new baby, and they just talk about how they just went and visited their friends. And then you feel even more sadness. And then again, middle of the night feeding, or, you know, you're doing something really challenging with your baby, and you just start having this intrusive thought of running away and like abandoning your family. And you're just like, whoa, it scares you, right? You're like, whoa, I would never do that. But this is what I mean, is when we don't check in with ourselves, when the little nudges come in and we say, how can I help you? I would like to see friends. I miss friends too. Yeah. When we don't like step in and be our own advocate and we don't serve our own needs when they're little, like I said, the brain gets desperate. So this is what I help moms with as the postpartum coach. And this is actually something, I wouldn't say I'm perfected at it, because I'm a human working on it all the time. But I do have 4 kids, and I have been a life coach now for about 5 years. And I swear, I feel like this is one of my gifts, is just really hearing my body. And I think the reason it's a gift and a strength is because it used to be a weakness. It used to be a really, really, really hard thing for me. And I used to have intrusive thoughts. I used to have panic attacks. I used to have really intense anxiety. I used to have thought loops that were very critical towards myself, and it would lead me into this depressiveness. And I have had suicidal thoughts before. I never attempted suicide. I never planned it, but this is where I come from. Okay. So when I'm talking to you guys about intrusive thoughts and stuff, it's because I've been in the low, creepy red zone, and I've been in very low quality, very desperate, illogical thoughts. And I know how it feels, and I know how freaky it feels. And we don't have to be there. We can get better at preventing those by tuning in more deeply to our bodies and our minds. And so what I do in coaching is I help women be able to track or observe their thoughts and not just fall for them or kind of be in the thoughts, but actually really develop this observer. And what that does is it creates like a buffer. You know, think about bowling. You need those thingies on the side of the lane so that your ball doesn't go into the I can't think of the words, the crevice, so that you have a higher chance of getting a strike. Wow, it's been years since I've bowled, people. I can't even think of the words. Similarly, that's the effect that coaching has on your mind and body, and on your flow as a mom and your motherhood and postpartum and stuff, is it creates this buffer, and not just coaching, but learning how to observe your mind, not just be in it. And it's the same thing with your body. Instead of just being in a big, cascade of sensations of anxiety, seeing and noticing that that's happening in your body, but also being outside of it. So you're both, you're feeling it and you're also being outside of it. And this is a skill that as you learn to do that, you can both be the child and the mother essentially for yourself. You can both be experiencing the hard things as a human and nurturing yourself through them. And so that's one of my strengths. That's my definite skill set. And you can always just come to LizzieLangston.com, get on my email list, download one of my freebies, get to know me better. I'll put them in the link in the description and in the show notes as well in the podcast. And we can work on that. But yeah, that is prevention. And that's one leg of decreasing intrusive thoughts. And then the second and also really important leg, I don't know why I chose leg, arm, of decreasing intrusive thoughts is learning how to respond to them in a way that isn't going to escalate the moment that they appear in your brain. And that's also going to forgive the fact that they happened and help you settle down, right? Intrusive thoughts, they thrive and they're most likely to occur and linger when you're activated. So I'll give you an example. Activated meaning like your heart rate's going fast, your nervous system is activated, you're not feeling safe to some degree, or you're super stressed. Okay, these are things that really make you vulnerable to having these moments of feeling really freaked out by intrusive thoughts. So I'll give you an example. Like I said, I just had my baby and she is 5 months now and she's so adorable. And when she was like 2 or 3 weeks old, she had some mouth stuff. She was technically preemie, pretty late preemie. And she had to have some mouth surgeries. But before we knew that, we were just pulling really like almost all-nighters trying to get her happy and fed. And she was so little because she came early. And so I would be there. My husband and I would take turns. But on the nights that it was my turn, specifically between 2 and 3:30 in the morning, that was like the worst time. If I woke myself up and I had to get up during that time, I just basically could bank on the fact that I would have some sort of intrusive thought. And it wasn't pleasant knowing that I had to wake up and that was likely to happen. Not fun at all. And we eventually ended up hiring sleep support. My friend Corey, shout out, came in and was our night nanny for just a couple weeks while we got her those surgeries and figured out what she needed, the baby. But nevertheless, before that, I would have these thoughts in the middle of the night that were like, I was convinced they were very paranoid. And so they were intrusive in the sense that they didn't make sense. They weren't logical. I don't normally think them and they weren't even helpful and they were freaking me out, right? Those are all the qualities of an intrusive thought. So I would have these thoughts that somebody was in the kitchen and they were going to like, come get me. And they had sneaked into my house. They were crawling around the kitchen, trying to like surprise me and capture me. And I don't know what they were going to do. Scary things. Okay. So this was my version of an intrusive thought, and it was in the middle of the night. Hopefully you can relate. And so the first couple times it happened, I genuinely just was freaked out. And then I had to kind of get my grips and be like, wait a second, I know what to do with intrusive thoughts. I've helped lots of clients through this. And so what I started to do was twofold. I started to prevent by getting more sleep. We hired sleep help. And then anytime I did feel the intrusive thoughts, if they were really freaking me out and I didn't have the ability to regulate myself, I would literally just go hand the baby to my husband. I would wake him up and be like, listen, I'm having a scary thought. I don't feel safe. I think I did that once or twice when I was pretty sleep deprived at that point. But as the sleep started improving, I got more able to just be with the sensations of the freak outness and the alarm of the thought and calm my body. So yeah, that was how I did it. And like that was just an example, but the last thing you want to do when you not like the last thing you want to do. I'm saying what you don't want to do. Don't do this. If you don't want intrusive thoughts, then make sure you don't ... judge yourself for having them. Even though this is, of course, the first thing that we all do. Do not turn on yourself, because when you have an intrusive thought, it's because you've been pushed past your human limits. You have had your needs overlooked by you because you haven't learned the skill of really deeply meeting your needs. And by the way, when you're postpartum, you are required to be so good at that in a way that you never were in your life before. And so don't blame yourself. It's not like a criticism for you. It's just that we have so much we're juggling postpartum, especially if you're first postpartum. So anyway, that is the last thing you want to do is just really not abandon yourself. You want to be there for yourself. You want to make sure that you are using nurturing language. Oh, so these are some examples like, oh, that was such a scary thought. I bet that scared you. I know you would never do that. Whoa, you must need some help right now, But again, I only was able to kind of talk myself down from it after I had done some preventative work of getting more sleep support And I had also had to hand off my baby a couple of times. So just don't feel bad if you're not able to like talk yourself down from it. Use your other strategies that are, more available right then. But come work with me. Come work with me if this is something that you struggle with. If it's something that you have trauma from, maybe you don't currently struggle with intrusive thoughts, but you're scared often. Maybe you're even scared to be alone at home because that's when it used to happen for you, is when you were alone at home with the baby, you had these scary thoughts. That type of suffering from the functioning of your own mind and body is optional. We can help you with that. I'm not here to diagnose you. I'm not here to treat you. I'm not a medical provider. I'm not here to tell you what will or won't happen for you. But what I will say is that I've seen many handfuls of women go from being terrified to be alone, or being terrified that something's wrong with them, and going through the medical system of checking themselves into all these different specialists and stuff, just to find out that actually they could have learned how to be more in tune with their own needs, catch them earlier and not get to this point, and how to delegate and get some sleep support. So you don't have to suffer, and definitely not alone. This is really common. Every now and then I do offer classes that we go deep into intrusive thoughts, and you have the opportunity to ask me questions. So you're going to want to make sure you're on my email list. So I'm going to put the link in the description on YouTube. I'm going to put the link in the show notes on the Postpartum Coach podcast, but you just go to LizzieLangston.com, LizzieLangston.com. And I have 3 or 4 freebies right there on the homepage that you can download and get sent to your email. And those will get you on my list, and they will also get you some help. So one of them is get out of the postpartum rut, and just get out of the rut, woman. Like, no matter if you're postpartum, no matter where you're at in your motherhood, it's just LizzieLangston.com, get out of the LizzieLangston.com. And then on that page, get out of the postpartum rut. I have some other good freebies, but overall, I want you to know that there is so much hope. You're so not alone, and we can prevent intrusive thoughts, and we can learn how to respond to them and nurture ourselves through them in a way that fades them out over not very much time. So I'm happy to help you. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you guys in the next video on YouTube, and in the next podcast episode on the Postpartum Coach podcast. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Lizzie here. I've helped dozens of postpartum moms just like you to manage their postpartum anxiety and deconstruct their postpartum depression. It's really easy for me. So if you're ready to feel better, I know the way. Let's chat on the phone. Set up a time by going to LizzieLangston.com/consult. It's pretty simple, and I will be calling you soon.